Chapter 3. My gentleness and good behavior gained so far on the emperor and his court, and indeed on the people in general, that I began to have hopes of getting any liberty in a short time. The natives came by degrees to be less fearful of danger from me. I should sometimes lie down and let 5 or 6 of them dance on my head, and at last the boys and girls ventured to come and play hide-and-seek in my hair. The horses of the army and the royal stables were no longer shy, having been daily led before me, and one of the emperor's huntsmen, on a large courser, took my foot, shoe and all, which was indeed a prodigious leap. I amused the emperor one day in a very extraordinary manner. I took 9 sticks and fixed them firmly on the ground in a square. Then I took 4 other sticks and tied them parallel to each other, about 2 feet from the ground. I fastened my handkerchief on one of the 9 sticks that stood erect, and extended it down on all sides till it was tight as the top of a drum. And I desired the emperor to let a troop of his best horse, 24 in number, come and exercise upon this plain. His Majesty approved of the proposal, and I took them up one by one, with the proper officers to exercise them. As soon as they got into order, they divided into 2 parties, discharged blunt arrows and drew their swords, fled and pursued, and I, in short, showed them the best military discipline I had ever beheld. The short stick secured them and their horses from falling off the stage, and the emperor was so much delighted that he ordered this entertainment to be repeated several days, and persuaded the empress herself to let me hold her in a chair within 2 yards of the stage, whence she could view the whole performance. Fortunately, no accident happened. Only once a fiery horse, pawing with his hoof, struck a hole in my handkerchief and withdrew his rider and threw himself. But I immediately relieved them both, and covering the hole with one hand, I set down the troop with the other, as I had taken them up. The horse that fell was strained in the shoulder, but the rider was not hurt, and I repaired the handkerchief as well as I could. However, I would not trust to the strength of it any more in such dangerous enterprises. I had sent so many petitions for my liberty that His Majesty at length mentioned the matter in a full council, where it was opposed by none except Skyrish Bollingham, Admiral of the realm, who was pleased without any provocation to be my mortal enemy. However, he agreed at length, though he succeeded in drawing himself up the conditions on which I was to be set free. After they were read, I was requested to swear to perform them in the method prescribed by their laws, which was to hold my right foot in my left hand, and place my middle finger of my right hand on the crown of my head, and my thumb on the top of my right ear. But I have made a translation of the conditions, which I here offer to the public. Golbast, Maram, Evlaim, Gerdad, Shephus, Moli, Oli, Gu, most mighty Emperor of Lilliput, delight and terror of the universe, whose dominions extend to the ends of the globe, monarch of all monarchs, taller than the sons of men, whose feet press down to the center, and whose head strikes against the sun, at whose nod the princes of the earth shake their knees, pleasant as the spring, comfortable as the summer, fruitful as autumn, and dreadful as winter. His most sublime majesty proposeth to the mountain man, lately arrived at our celestial dominions, the following articles, which by solemn oath he shall be obliged to perform. First, the mountain man shall not depart from our dominions without our license under a great seal. Second, he shall not presume to come into our metropolis without our express order, at which time the inhabitants shall have 2 hours' warning to keep within doors. Third, the said mountain man shall confine his walks to our principal high roads, and not offer to walk or lie down in a meadow or cornfield. 4. As he walks the said roads, he shall take the utmost care not to trample upon any of the bodies of our living subjects, their horses or carriages, nor take any of our subjects into his hands without their own consent. 5th, and an express requires extraordinary speed, the mountain man shall be obliged to carry in his pocket the messenger and 6 horses 6 days' journey, and return the said messenger, if so required, safe to our imperial presence. 6. He shall be our ally against our enemies in the island Blefuscu and do his utmost to destroy their fleet, which is now preparing to invade us. Lastly, upon his solemn oath to observe all of the above articles, the said mountain man shall have a daily allowance of meat and drink sufficient for the support of 1,724 of our subjects, with free access to our royal person and other marks of our favor. Given at our palace Belfabric, the 12th day of the 91st moon of our reign. I swore to these articles with great cheerfulness, whereupon my chains were immediately unlocked, and I was at full liberty. One morning, after a fortnight after I had obtained my freedom, Rodersel, the Emperor's secretary for private affairs, came to my house, attended only by one servant. He ordered his coach to wait at a distance, and desired that I would give him an hour's audience. I offered to lie down that he might more conveniently reach my ear, but he chose rather to let me hold him in my hand during our conversation. He began with compliments on my liberty, but added that, save for the present state of things at court, perhaps I might not have obtained it so soon. For, he said, however flourishing we may seem to foreigners, we are in danger of an invasion from the island of Blefuscu, which is another great empire of the universe, almost as large and as powerful as this of our Majesty. For as to what we have heard you say, that there are other kingdoms in the world inhabited by human creatures as large as yourself, our philosophers are very doubtful, and rather conjecture that you dropped from the moon, or one of the stars, because 100 mortals of your size would soon destroy all the fruit and cattle of his Majesty's dominions. Besides, our histories of 6,000 moons make no mention of any other regions than the two mighty empires of Lilliput and Blefuscu, which, as I am going to tell you, are engaged in a most obstinate war, which began in the following manner. It is allowed on the hands that the primitive way of breaking eggs was upon the larger end, but his present Majesty's grandfather, while he was a boy, going to eat an egg and breaking it according to the ancient practice, happened to cut one of his fingers, whereupon the Emperor, his father, made a law commanding that all his subjects break the smaller end of the eggs. The people are so highly resented this law that there have been 6 rebellions raised to that account, wherein one emperor lost his life, and another his crown. It is calculated that 1,100 persons have at different times suffered rather than break their eggs at the smaller end. But the rebels, the Beguinidans, have found so much encouragement at the Emperor of Blefuscu's court, to which they always fled for refuge, that a bloody war, as I said, has been carried on between the two empires for 36 moons, and now the Blefuscians have equipped a large fleet and are preparing to descend upon us. Therefore his Imperial Majesty, placing great confidence in your valor and strength, has commanded me to set the case before you. I desired the secretary to present my humble duty to the Emperor, and to let him know I was ready, at the risk of my life, to defend him against all invaders.